Hey guys, welcome to another video from Historic Militaria. Today we're going to be looking at the Soviet Makarov pistol. And what we've got in front of us right now are 4 Soviet military production Makarov pistols. And we'll just look at some of the markings on them and talk about a little bit of the history of these guns, as well as the current condition of them on the American collector market. So first things first, the Makarov is widely imported also from Bulgaria, and the Bulgarian and Soviet Makarovs look pretty similar just from a cursory appearance. They both use Cyrillic characters, but what you're going to notice on a true Soviet Makarov is that Izhevsk symbol right there, which is right by the date on this one, which is 1962, and that is the circle with the arrow or triangle. And on a Bulgarian one, you're going to see a circle 10 for the factory code that produced the Bulgarian Makarovs. So if you see a circle 10, you know you're looking at a Bulgarian. If you see the Izhevsk mark, you know you're looking at a Russian. And we'll just go down the line here. All these have that Izhevsk mark. No circle 10s on these. The other thing is, on the older Makarovs, the safety is also going to be numbered to the gun, and that's something you're not going to see on the later Makarovs in Soviet service or Russian service. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Also, the Soviets, while they were really good about dating most of their guns, they did use year codes for some of the earlier Makarovs. So if you look at this one, this is an L code, and that's going to be the letter right here at the end of your serial number. And that, as I understand it, dates it to 1959. Now, I could be wrong on the actual dating, but that's the best information that I've been able to find and sort of the collecting community accepts. And again, by 1962, the Soviets were actually dating their guns, so that's 1962. This guy is a K date code, which is, if I remember correctly, is going to date it to 1958. And then this guy is a 1962. So just some basic history of the Makarov pistol. It was part of a modernization of weaponry in general after World War II. The Tokarev TT-33 was a great gun, and it was reliable and tough, but the Soviets decided, hey, you know what, let's go for something a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller, and they wanted to go for the new 9x18 cartridge rather than the really powerful 7.62x25 round. So after some trial and error from the late 40s to the very early 50s, by about 1951, the Makarov pistol was ready to be produced, and it was in fact produced right about 1951. It definitely drew inspiration from the Walther PP handgun in that it is a double single action firearm, which is blowback. It is not a delayed blowback, so it just relies on the mass of the slide and a strong spring in there to keep it closed while you fire it. The 9x18 cartridge is not super powerful either. It is not as powerful as a 9x19 Parabellum. So you really can do a delayed blowback with that caliber, and it is a little bit underpowered, I think, by American standards. A lot of American shooters find it to be maybe a little bit low for self-defense, certainly, but that's a whole nother video for a whole nother time. The takedown of these is very much like a Walther PP in that you crack the trigger guard down, and then you can remove the slide, pull it back, pull it up, and it'll come off, and then your barrel is going to be a fixed barrel in there, and you take the spring off. And it's disassembly is actually very easy. The markings on these, like we said, we've got the Soviet military marks with your serial number. Your serial number is repeated on the slide, and on some, the serial number is also going to be right there on the, or the last 4 of the serial number is going to be on your safety as well. Also, with a number of Makarovs, certainly Soviet Makarovs, you will find, if I can actually pull this guy out, you will find the last 4 digits of the serial number also stamped on the magazine. And of course, this magazine is just not being cooperative right now. And it's a European type latch. So put the camera down and we'll get that out quickly. You'll see that the last 4 of the magazine, or of the gun, are actually stamped on the magazine, and those are going to correspond with your serial number. I've seen electro-penciled versions also, but in general, the magazine should match your Makarov. That's just something to look for. It's, not the end of the world if it doesn't, but it's nice if it does. A lot of them came with 2 matching magazines. All these guns do have 2 matching magazines, just not with them right now. The Makarov stayed in service, certainly for the entire rest of the Soviet period, and about 5 million were made. So they were a very widely manufactured gun. They stayed in service with the Russian military as well, and they are still in service with a large part of the Russian military, security forces, and police. Even though they've been replaced by other handguns since then, they're still widely available, widely used, and very popular. They're small, they're very reliable, and they don't have too much of a kick, and they're very concealable. So that's just sort of the story of them. They're not going anywhere. They were also made in Bulgaria, they were made in East Germany, and they were made in China. Now, the Bulgarian Makarovs have sort of been pretty common on the U.S. commercial market. You will see them pretty extensively. They are, I think, at a pretty good price point still for what they are, and they're only going to go up, and they're not making more of the old surplus ones. So I would definitely, if you're interested, pick one up while they are available. The East German ones are sort of the next least expensive, even though they can get pretty pricey sometimes. They are very cool to have an East German made gun, because they definitely did not make all that many of them, and they are available if you're looking to collect them. Then the Chinese version is actually probably the least well made in the fit and finish. They're certainly reliable, but not a lot came over. So if you can find a Chinese one and you're a collector, they are definitely going to command a premium. And then there's, of course, the Soviet ones, which are, for whatever reason, have just become ridiculous in price. They are rare, but there are quite a few out there, but it seems like once people get them, they do not sell them very often. So to find one on the market is kind of unusual. Most of them are going to have import marks. None of these 4 have any import marks, which is just kind of a cool thing, something that I definitely look for in handguns or rifles as well. And most of the import marks are going to be on this side, usually right through this area. And one of the more common import marks you're going to see is CKC. And I forget exactly who that stood for, but that was an entity that imported quite a few Soviet Makarovs, and they did pretty sloppy stampings. Certainly the majority that I have had or seen have had CKC import marks. The ones that don't have import marks usually have a really cool story attached to them, and I'm going to blow a bubble here and just say that it's just a story. I have heard that they are diplomatic smuggles, brought back in diplomatic pouches, brought back from the Gulf War, brought back from Vietnam, brought back from organized crime, brought back from all kinds of things. And I categorically don't believe any of those stories whatsoever. I do believe that some potentially could have come back from the Gulf War. I do believe that some might have come back from Vietnam. But the conditions on those are certainly not going to be in this kind of condition. You're not going to find, basically 100% brand new guns with mirror bright bores that came back from those environments. That would be a pretty unusual thing. So I kind of call BS on a lot of the stories I hear. I also don't believe that many diplomats are smuggling Makarovs into the country in the diplomatic pouches to then sell them to gun dealers and whatnot. Makes for a really exciting story. I'm really not going to buy it. And until you can show otherwise, I don't think so. I will tell you my personal experience with Makarovs is I know of about 150 that were in one collection. They were all in excellent condition. They were all CKC import marked. They came directly from CKC inventory, and CKC did a bad job of stamping, and a few of them made it through without import marks, and you are looking right here at guns that came through without import marks. That's all. So not quite as exciting as organized crime or bring back or diplomatic pouches or spies, but probably the more realistic thing is that some of these people just did not import mark their guns right. But it is definitely something to consider, and the Soviet Makarov does bring a pretty large premium for what it is on today's collector market. It seems like there's quite the craze for them. People definitely want them. They're paying big money for them, and more power to you if you've got some. Just remember, your magazine is going to match your slide, your serial number right here, and on some, not all, you're going to have this numbered as well. Certainly the later guns from the 70s, not going to be numbered like that. You're going to find ones that have date codes. You're going to find ones that actually have a year stamped on them. Both exist. So there's no real rhyme or reason other than it seems like after about 1962, all those guns do have date codes from then on until the end of production. So if you've got one from the 50s or early 60s, probably just going to have a letter code only. Other than that, there's not really a lot known about military production of these. The Izhevsk factory did make a commercial variant called the Baikal, which was imported into the United States in the late 90s into the early 2000s. The difference with those is a lot of them are double stack magazines that hold 10 or 12 rounds of .380, though I have seen 9x18 as well. And the markings are going to be different. You're not going to have the military markings, and it should say Baikal, it should say .380 caliber. It will also have an adjustable rear sight. These have a fixed rear sight, but the Baikals are going to have an adjustable. They're made for the American sport shooting or self-defense market. So just keep that in mind. Just because you find a Russian Makarov does not mean it's a Russian military Makarov. Matter of fact, most of the ones you're going to find are going to be the Baikal imports, and they command a much lower price than an original Soviet Makarov. So, with that in mind, I hope this has been a little bit of a primer on what to look for, the current state of things, and a little bit of an explanation on the lack of import marks that you may see on these. And always remember, buy the gun, not the story. I can make great stories up, but a good gun will always speak for itself. And unless there's some really ironclad documentation on it, don't believe what you see. Anyway, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. And as always, we'll be doing more videos on all kinds of interesting things in the near future. Thanks for watching.